I think that two issues. Inflation is one issue. If inflation starts accelerating, which is, unlikely now, but it's not a far-fetched idea in the future. Once the risks come down and people feel better about the future, then inflation is going to be a major issue, because that means that the Federal Reserve will have to start increasing interest rates, and that is going to affect the housing market. And the second one is unemployment. Unemployment is very high, and the U.S. Hispanic unemployment rate is even higher than the normal. So that is the second factor that the Hispanic market will have to deal with, how fast U.S. Hispanics are able to come back into the labor force and be a force to be reckoned with again.
I would add to that the concern about the availability of credit, mortgage credit, for minority home buyers. The bar is being raised. It's getting more difficult to get credit as credit standards are raised, and the programs that have traditionally supported minority lending are being scaled back. We saw that in some of the numbers we talked about earlier, with the FHA has a 20% share of the market, this is a year ago, and is doing 45% of the lending to Hispanic Americans. That means that the private market has exited the field in large part. And so if I'm an entrepreneur on the ground and I want to make sure that my clients have access to home ownership, I need to educate myself about what the tools are that are available. They do need to know FHA. Hispanic realtors need to understand FHA. They need to be able to work with FHA, because that's going to be, for a while, the most likely source of mortgage credit for non-traditional borrowers.
During the good years, there has been tremendous gains made among the minority families becoming homeowners, particularly among the Hispanic households. But the concentration of where market went down, and it was in the Nevada, Arizona, California, and Florida, and these are the area where disproportionately higher percentage of Hispanics. So I hope that people and the policymaker do not view that it was somehow, once some studies comes out and they try to identify what are some contributing factors to identify or segregate one ethnic group from it, because when the market goes down, it brings everyone down with it. So it was really the market condition that really fueled some of the states and also led to subsequent buzz.
When there is this much turmoil, when there is this much upheaval taking place, there's also opportunity. Where do you guys see opportunity for our NAHREP folks and for Hispanics in this coming environment, in the next year or so? Where is it that they can find some really great niches that they can get into, especially all those entrepreneurs of ours?
I think the opportunity is really present in terms of one looks at the housing valuation has fallen sufficiently, and by every metric it's implying that it has overfallen, which means that with any bubble it overcorrects and it's going to go back to the normal. So people are buying on the cheap today. The other opportunity is the uncertainty regarding the inflation outlook. Anytime there's a high inflation, the asset class that always benefit is tangible assets, something that people can really touch, and real estate has traditionally done well in terms of keeping up with inflation. So if there is inflation, I don't know if there will be, many economic forecasters believe that there will be tame inflation going forward, but assume they are wrong and there is a high inflation. One way to hedge against that is to own a real property. So people who are buying today on the cheap, just getting back up to the fundamental, they gain. But if there's a high inflation, they have already hedged their bet to protect themselves from inflation.
I think the thing that differentiates and can differentiate Hispanic real estate brokers from the rest of the market is in establishing a bond of trust with borrowers who do not trust the system right now. And given what we've went through, there's very little confidence among buyers and borrowers in the whole system, from the banks to the brokers. And that's the opportunity to develop that relationship of trust and knowledge also, because knowledge also counts in this environment to differentiate yourself from others in the marketplace. That's an opportunity. I think it's also a great reason why members should be involved in an organization like NAHREP, because they get the knowledge base and the information that they need to make a difference and show that they have a competitive advantage to the borrower. So I think it's psychology is some of what this comes down to, knowledge and trust.
I agree. I think that the best thing, I mean, right now, home prices are almost at historic lows. And interest rates are at historic lows. So that combination will never be back until we go through the next bubble or a next depression. So this is the time that if you can buy, you have to buy today. And the message is this environment is not repeatable. I mean, it is not going to happen again anytime soon. So this is the best time to buy, and this is the best time to sell for real estate professionals, no? And you know, Hispanics have had issues buying homes because homes were very expensive before. So if you are able to find financing, this is the best time for Hispanics to buy homes. There is a lot of money coming from the government. The bulk of the fiscal package is going to come in 2010. So at least we are going to have a floor, very robust floor. The issue is going to be how high we go today in third quarter and fourth quarter, and if it is sustainable for 2010. So I don't see, if there's a double dip, I don't see it very strong. It will depend on how high we get today. That will be taken out next year, because I don't see it. I don't see sustainability. I mean, I see all these problems with the government and the government intervention, and no private capital behind it. And I have some issues with consumer purchases next year, also unemployment rate and so forth. But at least we are guaranteed that there's a floor. We are not going to go down as we did last year.
I think that's exactly right. I think that 2010 looks pretty much like the last half of 2009, which is to say that we have some tentative stability, some ups and some downs, and we'll have some good news and some bad news, but basically we'll end up with a platform for hopefully for more growth in 2011. The other thing that will happen in 2010 is that it's a very political year. In Washington, the United States Congress, all the members of the House of Representatives and a third of the Senate will be up for re-election, and that will impact the way that Washington continues to approach these federal interventions and regulation, and probably not for more rational purposes given that it's an election year. So watch and see what happens this year.
I think if the tax credit is extended, that assures us that 2010 would be certainly better year for the industry in terms of the revenue, in terms of transaction, and it's also good for the consumers and for the broader economy. So tax credit, certainly much better. Without the tax credit, it's possible that housing market has enough momentum to carry forward, but it's also possible that it could roll downhill. So there's a big uncertainty one way or the other, but let's just completely remove that uncertainty by just passing the tax credit and get the housing back on track.